Good afternoon, everybody. Could there be a better testimonial to a book than the fact that Mark Godsey himself, the author of Blind Injustice, as I say, has done this review of the book, which I am rapidly getting through. It really is a superb book. And of course, a lot of the chapters are devoted early on to the idea that the police want to try and develop a foolproof lie detection system. They had the polygraph, well, they had the third degree that elicited plenty of false confessions. The lie detector test, which they use invariably when people have taken it, they invariably tell them you failed, because there's deception, and they tell people that it's 100% reliable, 99% accurate, and the whole idea that you can come up with a lie detector that will be infallible. It seems a bit bizarre when, as I say, the interrogators themselves are allowed to lie, to the people that they're interrogating. But anyway, one of the things that is obviously interesting to look at, once somebody has been convicted, hi there, Mel Billy, once somebody has been convicted, fine, look at the body language and you'll see certain clues about that person's characteristics that gave him or her away. I have no problem with Ian Huntley, Jeff Langley in the UK did an excellent piece about Ian Huntley where he shows all the deception, the nuances around the lips, the shoulders, the shrugs, everything. He was able, once he knew that Ian Huntley was guilty, is it Jeff Langley? Oh, damn it, I can't remember his name, but it was definitely Langley. That's going to bug me now because I do. Cliff Lansley. Sorry. Cliff Lansley, yes. He's an expert here in the UK. He appears on lots of TV programs where once somebody has been convicted, then he can look at their body language and say, these are the telltale signs that I noticed that gave him away. But you can't do that before somebody is convicted and use that as some sort of evidence. You can't convict somebody. You cannot be convinced of somebody's guilt purely by their body language. If the Chamberlain case over there in Australia taught us anything, is it Linda Chamberlain? The dingo ate my dog scenario. She was completely innocent. It really was an attack by a dingo, and yet she got pilloried for years. Everybody said, "Oh no, there's something wrong with them." That she's too calm, she's too matter of fact. And she's trying to do her best to help the police understand what's going on. She gets attacked for it. So one of the things I would never do is criticize even Mike Holbach and Ryan Hilligus. A lot of people have said, "Oh, you look at their body language." Well, it doesn't make them guilty. It looks suspicious to some people. Even Karen Holbach with her phone call to report Teresa missing. People have said, "Oh, that sounds dodgy." Maybe it does, but I don't think we can pillory people for it. Certainly, when it comes to Mike Holbach, I'm really annoyed about the fact that the press didn't pick up on what he said. Had that have been Stephen Avery, they would have jumped all over Stephen Avery. Yeah, absolutely. Palm of God, bizarre. She does this one bit that going through it, where she says something and then immediately touches her nose, which apparently this is one of the, a surefire way of showing that, finger on the nose job, that somebody is not telling the truth. But we're all different, There's a bit of a debate going on in the French Wrecking Crew. Jerome's site, if you go to the French Wrecking Crew Facebook page, somebody I think was called Surname of Toyman had put that there's a video by a French Canadian woman who I presume it's to do with body language. As I say, you can't use body language to suspect somebody of guilt. Certainly, once somebody has been found guilty, then fine. Look at the body language. See if you can see the things that gave the game away with that person. Exactly, it's how they answer questions. It's what they say is very important. In the case of Mike Holbach, the way he answered, what he said, very, very important. Anyway, just wanted to point out, if you want to go over to the Wrecking Crew, French Wrecking Crew Facebook page, then you can see all that's going on. Somebody suggesting that Stephen Brennan clearly guilty because they've watched this video by this French Canadian who has said that come up with a load of spurious facts, somewhat similar to Millbilly's presentation of that video where the guy claims, now when he says this, it means Teresa's still breathing, and now she's gone. It's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You've got to put it into context and realize what the conversation was beforehand. I mean, look, if the bottom line is if there was any of even the slightest hint that any of that was to do with Teresa being there and being murdered, you would have had all of the guilters jumping on that. The fact that somebody comes along and thinks that they've discovered something that everybody else must have missed. Well, no, it's not that they've missed. It's just that it's not there. You're looking, as a guilter, you're looking for things that aren't there. You're trying to come up with any kind of excuse that you can, all this cognitive dissonance. Anyway, as you probably noticed, I've got a few videos lined up, video chats. Saturday with Pete. Looking forward to having a chat with Pete, the young guy, smart-looking fella, sat behind Ken Kratz. Looking forward to having another chat with Pete. He keeps sending me stuff every day. It's absolutely great. Then on Sunday, Rob Bellin was going to be 2 o'clock, probably 3 o'clock Wisconsin time. Looking forward to having a chat with him. He tells me he loves Charlie Bones, so we might mention him. I'm not giving up completely on having Charlie on. I presume his sort of PR secretary type person got in touch and said, can you send me some suggestions, and we'll look at it. So you never know. So yeah, Saturday Pete Darcy, Sunday Rob Bellin. Who obviously did a lot of interviews with Anjanette Levy, who is one of the ones that hasn't caved in the way that Emily Matasics and others just parroted what the state was saying. A little bit of an investigative journalist in Anjanette. Anyway, and then on Wednesday, Mark Godsey himself got it all lined up, all set up. So we're going to have a chat with Mark Godsey about the book Blind Injustice. And as I say, it's brilliant book and lots of references to Making a Murder. In fact, the quote by Jerry Buting, I just wanted to know how far you were prepared to go when he talks to Mark LeBeau. It was in Mark Godsey's book. That's one of the items that Mark discusses the fact that Jerry is clearly suspicious, hugely suspicious of the FBI getting involved in this one. Now then, let's pop this up. And go over here. Go over here. Let's just make sure everything's working as it should do. C. Chapter C of this review. The result: false confessions and miscarriages of justice. Many American courts have for years reasoned that police deception during interrogation is legally permissible because it is not, quote, apt to lead an innocent suspect to confess. And fair enough. You know, Wiegand and Fassbender, when they're interviewing Steve, they, you know, as a lot of you have pointed out, quite rightly, you know, they say stuff to him like, you know, just out of the blue, what way was the RAV4 parked? Which way was it facing? And Steve is like, well, I don't know. How would I know? You know, I never put it there. Trying to trick him. And any kind of bluffing that they come up with for Steve, you know, saying that, you know, your DNA's there, your fingerprints are there, this is there, that's there, you know, he's quite, you know, used to dealing, unfortunately, with police. Brendan, no, definitely not. Anyway, let's carry on. Surveys and interviews of jurors, police officers, and prosecutors suggest that this belief is widespread. Leo's extensive body of work on the subject, however, summarized in chapters 6 and 7, demonstrates otherwise. He calls this misimpression the myth of psychological interrogation. The myth is perpetuated because of the secrecy surrounding modern interrogation. Most people simply do not understand how highly manipulative, deceptive, and stressful interrogation can be. No one can put a percentage on the number of confessions that are false, but the advent of widespread post-conviction DNA testing has revealed that false confessions are disturbingly more common than most believe. Indeed, DNA testing is like a crystal ball, allowing us to look back at old cases and see with great clarity whether a confessor is truly guilty. The DNA revolution can be a great learning moment for the criminal legal system if we are open to the lessons taught. False confessions are one of the leading causes of wrongful conviction of the innocent, second only to eyewitness misidentification. The following chart depicts various studies of wrongful conviction cases and the number and percentage of those convicted that relied on false confessions. I think we've probably gone as far as Drizzen and Leo before, because obviously I did a review of the 125 false confessions. Anyway, let's run through them. Bader and Radelet, 350 people in the study. Number of false confessions, 49. Leo and Ovshi, 1998 and 2001, 60 studied, 60 false confessions. Warden, 2003, 42 studies, 25 wrongful convictions. Obviously, Drizzen and Leo, 125. Gross and all, 340, 51. The Innocence Project, 2007, and Garrett, 2008, 200 cases, 31. And Richard Leo, The Wrong Guys, Murderer, False Confessions, and the Norfolk 4, hereinafter, The Wrong Guys. Let's see, Innocence Project statistics. Carry on, next page. Leo outlines the 4 ways in which confessions can be discredited. One way is when it is later conclusively proven that the crime did not occur. Well, yeah. It would appear, certainly from 3,600 miles away, and that there are a lot of people who are highly suspicious of the fact that, did Teresa meet her demise on the 31st of October? It's really, really interesting how many people are suspicious of whether or not a crime actually did occur. The one thing I would say there, though, in defense of Mike Holbach, is that in one of his court appearances, he does seem genuinely disturbed at the fact that his sister's life was taken. It could be good acting, but as I say, I'm not going to read much into body language. Anyway, in one case, for example, several defendants were convicted of murder based on their confessions and a witness's testimony that the defendants had killed her newborn baby and disposed of the body. Scientific evidence later established, after the defendants spent years in prison, that the woman had never had a baby. She had had a tubal ligation operation that prevented her from getting pregnant. In fact, we definitely read about that one in the Leo and Drizin 125 false confessions. In fact, I think one of the very earliest examples of a false confession was way back in the 1800s that Sol Kassan alerted me to. This guy who was about to hang for murdering this other guy. A day before he was supposed to hang, the bloke turned up alive and well. He'd simply gone off somewhere for a week or so. The second way confessions are proven false occurs when it is demonstrated that it would have been physically impossible for the defendant to have committed the crime. In 3 different Chicago cases, for example, defendants who confessed were later proven to have been in jail on the date that the crimes occurred. Third, a confession is proven false when the identity of the true perpetrator is later discovered. Chris Ochoa, for example, spent years in prison for armed robbery, rape and murder until the true perpetrator came forward, confessed and led the police to the murder weapon and bag where he had hidden the fruits of the crime. The final and most common way that a confession is proven false is when DNA evidence conclusively clears the inmate. Examples of this method are too numerous to discuss. Indeed, today, 234 individuals have been conclusively proven innocent through post-conviction DNA testing. Mark Godsey is writing this article, I think 2014. So I think that Steve's 1985 case could be one of those. No, sorry, forget that, of course. We're dealing with examples of false confessions. Sorry. Yes, the fact that false confessions are proven wrong. So strike that. Indeed, today, 234 individuals have been conclusively proven innocent, or despite confessing, through post-conviction DNA testing, with the number constantly on the rise. An alarming percentage of these innocent suspects falsely confessed as a result of extreme psychological interrogation. I have personally handled 2 false confession cases in Ohio that are not counted in this group of 234. Common sense tells us that this number is just the tip of the iceberg. The majority of serious crimes, like armed robbery and murder, are often non-DNA cases. In these cases, the crime occurred in such a way that the perpetrator did not leave his or her DNA at the scene. And in most would-be DNA cases, the police do not preserve the DNA after conviction and appeal. In Ohio, for example, in 2/3 of the cases where inmates have sought post-conviction DNA testing, the crucial DNA that could have proven innocence or guilt once and for all had been destroyed or lost by the time the inmate requested testing. That's interesting, isn't it? No mention of it's been, lost and destroyed. Well, what about the prosecutors getting together and surreptitiously behind everybody's back, handing back evidence which is so crucial to the case that one of the people handing the stuff back, Norm Garn, had actually been instrumental in writing the statute? Yeah, this is going to be something new for everybody to look at. Anyway, this percentage is typical of the sorry state of DNA preservation in other states as well. And I know that the dude would be jumping up and down talking about the Scott Davis case. Somewhere between 50 and 70 items of evidence just go missing. There is no qualitative difference between cases in which DNA testing exists to prove innocence and the vast majority of the remaining cases where no DNA is available. The same interrogation techniques are used in both types of cases. The 244 DNA exonerations, with the alarming number of false confessions these cases have laid bare, are just a small percentage of the total number of cases where false confessions may have occurred. The confessions in the remaining cases, however, cannot be demonstrated true or false because no conclusive check exists on the back end to verify the validity of the confession. By any measure, however, the myth that innocent suspects simply do not confess is patently wrong. Leo next outlines 3 types of false confessions based on a typology developed by Godsey and Reitzman. A voluntary false confession occurs when a citizen suddenly confesses on his own, subject to no police coercion. The mentally disturbed defendant in Colorado versus Connolly falls into this first category. The coerced complaint false confessor, on the other hand, is a suspect who privately knows while he is confessing that he is innocent. This type of suspect confesses because the extreme interrogation tactics, including false evidence ploys, convinces him that his situation is hopeless, he will be convicted, and that the only way he can get the interrogation to end and simultaneously avoid harsher punishment is to tell the interrogators what they want to hear. This type of confessor comes to rationally believe that confessing is his only option and the lesser of 2 evils. The final type of false confession is the coerced internalized confession. This type of suspect, hearing the overwhelming evidence of his guilt the police have laid at his feet during the interrogation, and not knowing that this evidence is fabricated, comes to doubt his own memory and believe that he must have committed the crime. This type of confessor comes to believe that he either committed the crime while sleepwalking or in an alcohol-induced blackout, or that he has simply suppressed his memories of the crime because they are too painful to accept. Although false confessions are intuitive and often difficult to wrap one's mind around, One can understand how they occur by reading examples. By examining the actual case studies, Leo provides numerous detailed case studies of each type of false confession. Each story is uniquely compelling. A reader of these case studies can come to fully understand how the suspect would falsely confess as a result of extreme psychological pressures. Well, yes, certainly the third example there of the person that thinks they must have done it even though they can't remember it. Obviously, Marty Tancliffe, a really good example. Anyway, other compelling depictions of how false confessions can be manufactured are found in John Grisham's non-fiction work, The Innocent Man, which of course is also available on Netflix. Now it's been made into a documentary, and in Leo's co-authored non-fiction story entitled The Wrong Guys, which describes the numerous false confessions made by the Norfolk Four. Although providing narrative depictions of interrogations that led to false confessions is beyond the scope of this review, readers who wish to understand this phenomenon should read one of these two excellent books. There is more to the story. Part of the problem, says Leo, is that detectives are ingrained with the belief that all suspects they interrogate are guilty. Training seminars have convinced detectives that they are highly accurate human lie detectors, thus building false confidence in their biased intuition of guilt. Leo asserts that this phenomenon is both wrong and dangerous. He writes, "In the more than 2,000 interrogations I have studied, I have rarely encountered interrogators who remember most of the specifics from the laundry list of supposed non-verbal and verbal indicators of deception taught by interrogation training firms such as Reed and Associates. Rather, detectives tend to confidently believe that they can reliably infer whether a subject is lying or telling the truth based on their own intuitive analysis of his body language and demeanor. They sometimes refer to their superior high human lie detection skills as stemming from a sixth sense common to police detectives. The unfortunate effect is that interrogators will sometimes treat their hunch or gut as somehow constituting direct evidence of the suspect's guilt, and then confidently moving to an aggressive interrogation. In my analysis of disputed confession cases, I have found that interrogators are often more certain in their belief in a suspect's guilt than the objective evidence warrants, and tenaciously unwilling to consider the possibility that their intuition or behavioral analysis is wrong. These tendencies may be reinforced by an occupational culture that teaches police to be suspicious generally and does not reward them for admitting mistakes or expressing doubts in their judgment. I think we've gone for nearly half an hour, so that might be a good place to stop for now. We're up to page 17. So I don't want to take too long over this. One of the most interesting things for me that I've came across in Richard Leo's book was a superb line that talked about the fact that a confession is not a statement, or in Brendan's case, an agreement with Wigan Fassbender that he saw toes. That is not a confession. That is just a statement. A confession has to have a narrative to it. And that's definitely not what we get with Brendan. Anyway, this might be it till Saturday, when I get a chance to have a chat with Pete Darcy. So if I don't see you before then, we will catch you then. Okay. Thank you all for popping in, and we'll see you all again soon. And as I say, do check out Jerome's channel on this Facebook page, the French Wrecking Crew, and see what you think of the comments there. Millbilly keeps doing loads of really good videos. I haven't caught up with this latest one comparing NTSO and queso calls, but I did, as I say, enjoy the one about the person who thinks he's cracked the case because of what Steve says to Jody. It's amazing what some people will believe. Anyway, we'll see you all again soon. Take care. Bye for now.